Howdy, Free Desert Boy here. Let's talk for a minute about one option that might be out there, and that option is the Henry Golden Boy 22 long rifle. So let's take a look. So this 22 long rifle by Henry holds 16 rounds of long rifle, or I think about 22 rounds of shorts. Most likely you're going to be using the long rifle. It's got a tubular fed magazine. The bullets go in here and they come down here, and when you rack the action, it loads around in the chamber and the gun is ready to fire. So one of the ways that you go about, some people might say, oh, this is all I want to have for some kind of personal defense, or maybe it's all you could find. It's still an option, and since you can't really increase the magazine capacity on this one because it's a fixed tubular magazine, there might be a way to look at, being able to increase the reload speed of it. So there's a product out there called the SPEE-D-LOADER. I got this from SPEE-D-LOADER.net. It's also on other commercial websites. It's basically got 8 tubes in it that hold the ammunition, and then it's spring loaded, and you can move it around to where you can allow the ammunition to be loaded into here and then for it to come out. So before we go any further, let's check the weapon safe. I always like to try to make sure I keep my fingers away from the muzzle or the barrel. I want to get them in front of it. The magazine tube comes out. Point the weapon, in this case, down and in a safe direction to make sure there's no rounds in there, because they would slide out in the tubular magazine. Then we also want to rack the action several times to make sure there's no rounds that are in the chamber, and then put the hammer down. So having done that, we've checked the weapon safe. But before I do that, let me turn this over for just a second, or to the side. Most of the time when you go to load these, you probably have them like this, and you would put your bullets in one at a time, either at the end here, or there's actually a slot cut in here that's in the shape of the cartridge or the bullet. So the bullet points up and the rimfire, the cartridge part, is down. They actually fit in there and go down into the gun. So that's normally how you would load it, one round at a time. So we're going to talk about, is there a way to load it a little faster than that? So 16 rounds, that's still, 16 bullets you got to put in there, or whatever amount of bullets you decide to put in there before you need to fire it. So let's set this aside for just a minute. Put our Henry Golden Boy over here for a second. Okay, so let's talk about this SPEE-D-LOADER that I showed you. Like I said, it's got 8 tubes here that each, in this case, this is called a D17. It'll hold 17 long rifle or 12 Magnum and 22 caliber. Of course, it will hold more shorts or longs, but those would be the ones we focus in on, because that's the ammunition we usually use. And then essentially what happens is here, this is spring loaded. So what happens is, and once again, you want to make sure you read the manual. It comes with SPEE-D-LOADER, the instructions, and your manual, your operating safety manual for whatever weapon that you have, to make sure you get the orientation correct when you put the bullets in here, and then make sure that they'll end up oriented correctly when you go and use the loader. Which would happen is they're going to come out of here, so you want to make sure when they go into your weapon that they're pointed the correct direction for them to load properly. So you need to read all those things and make sure you understand how it works. So essentially what happens is you line this up. This is spring loaded, so you pull out on it and you turn it. And then what you do is you put your bullets in the correct orientation for how it needs to be to go into the weapon. So in the case of the Henry, because when we go to load the Henry and we turn this up, the Henry, which we'll look at in a minute here, the bullets will be coming out with the cartridge down and the bullet facing up. And so when we put them in this case, the bullet will go in first, and then the cartridge part will be on the back, the rimfire part. So you would put all your ammunition in there. So this D17 is about $29.93. I also had bought a D15, which holds 15 rounds of long rifle or 11 rounds of Magnum. I bought this one because I'm thinking about buying a Henry with 12 round Magnum capacity, so it allowed it to get to 12 rounds with their pump 22 Magnum. And this one here is $24.97, the D15, and then this little case for it, which I thought was probably nice to protect it, is about $9.50. So if you look at this, you can see there's ammunition in here. Each one of these holds 15 rounds, right? So if you think about it this way, you think about it as, 8 times 10 is 80 rounds, and 8 times 5 rounds is 40 rounds. There's 120 rounds in here. I happen to have this loaded with 6 tubes full of lead round nose with 40 grains of CCI standard velocity, and then I have some increased velocity and two of the tubes with copper plated and also 40 grains CCI mini mag. So if we were to take this right now, because it's you go about a half a click on this thing, you have to pull it out, and it's spring loaded, and the bullets won't come out. If I take this and I move this over just a little bit, what you'll see is that the bullets come out. If you notice, when they were coming out in this case, they were coming out kind of tail first, with the cartridge part coming out and the bullet facing inward, because we need to always load it so that, once again, it aligns properly and has a proper orientation to load the weapon. So we put those back in there, and then we take this over about a half a click here, and we're back to where it won't come out. So let's go ahead then and let's take a look at our Henry once again and talk about how we load it. I know we've checked it safe, but once again, keeping our fingers away from being in front of the barrel. We get the magazine tube out. I like to make sure, because I might have not set it down for a little while, I like to rack the action to make sure the chamber's empty. Put the hammer down. In this case, you'd probably put it down at some kind of angle. Once again, you want to make sure you got a hold of it securely. So what you would be doing is taking the magazine. We're just going to simulate it. You could put it up like this, and then you'd have to hold on to this and pull up and twist it to where the rounds would then align with the tube and they slide down in here. That would be one way to do it. Another way to do it might be to turn it to where you want it, to where this is open before you put it in here, and then to raise it up, trying to keep them from falling out. So it goes in there, always trying to make sure you keep your fingers away from the barrel, the end of the barrel. Once it's in there, they'll slide down in there, and it might be better if there's some way you can put a little more angle on it so they don't just go flying down in there. Once that's empty, and you can, making sure your Henry is secure properly, you could twist this back, or you could wait till after you get the tube back in, because that tube's empty, and put it back in between there so none of them will fall out. Put it back in your case. Remember, you have rounds in here now, so you're going to need to put the magazine tube in. You don't want the bullets to fall out, so once again, trying to keep your fingers clear of the barrel. Slide that down in here. Remember, these are going to be under spring load pressure, so you're going to have to probably help slide that down in there. So it's going to have a little pushback on it. Make sure it doesn't, come loose. And it's under spring tension. It could kind of fly out of there, so you have to be careful with that. So now the gun is loaded. If you were to rack the action, then what happens is the gun will be ready to fire. So I wanted to talk to you about that, to show you that maybe you can increase the reloading ability of it, even though you can't increase the capacity. Once again, make sure that you be reading your operating safety manual and the instructions that come with the SPEE-D-LOADERs to make sure that you've got everything oriented properly for when you go to put the ammunition in there. I think I did talk about a price on those, on everything. If I didn't, once again, this one here was $29.93. This one here it's a D17. This one here is $24.97, which is a D15, and its little case is $9.50. So, one other thing I would mention is that I like companies that stand behind their products. When I originally ordered this, I actually ordered one of these, and it arrived, and not due to manufacturing or anything, but in the shipping it had been damaged. I contacted Kirk's Enterprises LLC, that's a company that makes these, and I bought these off SPEE-D-LOADER.net, and they were good about offering to supply me with any broken parts, and as we talked about it, they realized the damage was more extensive, and even though it wasn't due to their manufacturing or anything, it was due to the shipping, they sent me a replacement one. I had also already ordered the D17 because I wanted the additional 12 round capacity for magnums, looking towards mine, that Henry 22 Magnum with the pump action. So anyway, just once again, I don't get paid for that. It's not a promotion in that sense. I just think that if companies stand behind things, you should let folks know that they're good about that. So as always, you want to make sure you get any instruction or any additional insight from experts or instructors and things for anything that you're doing. Make sure you have a full understanding how it works. Contact the manufacturer if you have to for any of these kind of things. Make sure you're in compliance with local, state, and federal firearms laws. So that's just another thought on how you can maybe increase your reloading speed, even though you can't increase your capacity. And maybe you have a 22 or a 22 Magnum, and it's something that you would find useful. So once again, if you find this useful, please like, comment, and subscribe if you want. And as I always say, as a Desert Boy, be safe out there, whatever you're doing.